Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to reflect on a question that I've been seeing asked by an increasing number of political polling analysts recently. Do the Tories realise just how much trouble they're in? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So apparently it is the birthday of Edgar Allan Poe today, and that's quite interesting because you could actually describe the Tories' current polling situation as once upon a midnight dreary. So the thing about polling is that almost everyone just skims the surface. They look at the headline figures, but that only tells you where you are. It doesn't tell you where you're headed. Even the long-term trends don't really say that. Because there's lots of Conservative MPs, as well as many in the media. They look at Labour's lead, they just do this skim reading, and they say, well, it can be turned around. Labour's lead is soft. Look at 1992, look at 2015. Labour had a lead in those years and we still won it, didn't we? And I've said this for a while now. Labour's lead is no longer soft. It was, not anymore. If you look at the details within the polls, there's no similarity with 1992, certainly not 2015. Labour have had their poll lead for over 2 years now, and for much of it, it was indeed a soft lead. The problem for the Tories is that they have kept telling themselves that, even though it is now no longer true. I referred to a chart by Dylan Difford recently. This one is arguably even better. It shows the 2019 votes and where they are now. The Conservative column shows all those who voted Conservative in 2019 and how they intend to vote now according to the polls. The only fruitful targets for the Conservatives are really the don't knows, the white blocks. The ones that have gone to other parties, not really an efficient avenue for them. Because it's well established that, especially as the party of government, you can have voters saying they don't know how they will vote and they will still vote for you at the next election. You'll still win. It's just that they're not entirely happy with you at the time the poll's taken. But as soon as the campaign starts, then they start thinking very seriously about who they're going to vote for. And they go, we're not entirely happy with you, but all right, we'll still vote for you again. However, once a former voter goes from not just don't know, but yeah, I'm going to vote for these other people, they're almost certainly lost to you. Very few of them are winnable back. The Conservatives chasing after voters lost to Reform UK is a inefficient, futile even exercise. It's not that they can't win any back. It's just that it requires far too many resources for far too few voters won. They need to focus on the largest groups of flippable voters. And that is not those now saying they'll vote Reform UK. The only viable strategy for those is to persuade Reform UK to stand down once again. But I am increasingly sceptical that they will do so this time. The fact of the matter is that the Tories are going to lose the election now. The best strategy they can adopt is one which limits the damage. The problem is that I think Tory MPs are being lied to by their own. The Tory election strategist Isaac Leverdow was addressing Tory MPs at the start of the week and reportedly told them that the election was still winnable. Now, I get the dilemma here, I really do. You can't have reported any comments that even Tory strategists think they're going to lose. You have to put on a public show of believing you can win. Of course you do. But privately, what are they being told? Because they're given the impression that even privately they're being told it's possible to win, that they're adopting a strategy to win the election. And because very few, if any, Tory MPs will understand how to analyse polling themselves, it's possible they'll believe it. But this means adopting the wrong strategy. I saw a decent analogy in The Critic this week. They described the Tory position as follows, quote, "They're fighting over the best strategy for landing a plane that has lost both its wings. It really doesn't make a difference which airport they decide to try to get to. Their best hope is that they survive the crash and their less fortunate colleagues are edible." That is quite close to being a very good analogy here. Where it differs from the Tory position is if you were in this hypothetical plane, everyone can potentially give themselves an even chance of survival, right? Compared to everyone else. It's going to be down to luck. With the coming election, there are some Tory MPs who are completely screwed. They're definitely losing. There are others who will definitely survive. Not many of them, but there are a few. Even with polls putting them maybe only winning 41 seats, that means there's still some Conservative MPs who will definitely win their seats. And then you've got those in the middle, those who genuinely have a fighting chance. So maybe it's difficult to even privately tell Tory MPs they're done for, and it's just a case of fighting for scraps, because that would involve telling a lot of MPs, well over 100 MPs, that they're going to lose their seat for certain, but would you mind helping save the seats of your colleagues? Because as I've said a lot of times, the Conservative Party is the party of the self. There are very few amongst their number who would put themselves out for their colleagues. This is why I'm thinking increasingly, I think we're seeing analysts asking if the Tories realise just how much trouble they're in. Because if they're deliberately being hoodwinked by their own side, they really may not. The Tories keep consoling themselves with talk about Labour's lead being soft. It's not soft. Probably hasn't been reasonable to describe Labour's lead as soft since the summer at least. But why was it soft and why isn't it now? Better explain that first. So if you compare, say, 1992 and 2015, Labour did indeed have a lead in the polls in that election year and then lost it. Why was that? Look under the bonnet. Look at the key issues. When people say, when it looks like Labour have, from opposition, a polling lead over the Conservatives in government, it's really because people aren't happy with the Conservative government, right? When you get to the election campaign, they start to think about what is important to them. What is important to people? Things like the economy or the head-to-head. Who's going to be the Prime Minister? That's actually really important, the leader. In 1992 and 2015, Labour never led on the economy or the head-to-head. John Major was more popular than Neil Kinnock. David Cameron was more popular than Ed Miliband. And the Conservatives led on the economy in both those years as well. And that's what you look at. You look at what are the key issues, because that tells you how those don't knows are going to flip come the election. Whereas at the moment, Labour are leading on everything. Absolutely everything. So the Labour's lead is no longer soft. It was, because the Tories were, even when they were behind in the polls, leading on some key areas. Now they are not. But the Tory position is soft. Their position's soft. Because right now, they're probably looking like being on for 150 seats. They could hit some rich seams in the campaign. They're planning a very, very dirty campaign and they're going to spend a lot of money on it. And who knows, maybe they'll get some things to stick and they'll improve on that a bit. I can't say. But 150 seats seems like the result you'd most likely suggest is most likely, right? But that's what's soft. What the polling analysis is increasingly showing is that it doesn't take a great deal for that 150 seats to actually collapse to 50. If the Tory campaign falls flat, if their dirty tactics don't work, or if the people who have to carry those campaigns don't work. Rishi Sunak, I might discuss this tomorrow, Rishi Sunak has been filmed talking to members of the public today, and an elderly woman berated him about the state of the NHS and he laughed at her. He's been filmed laughing at someone complaining about the state of the NHS. Imagine a whole 5 or 6 weeks of that. So if the campaign falls flat, if Reform UK's media attention works for them and they don't stand down at the election again, if Tory MPs acting out of sheer desperation descend into bitter recriminations and infighting before the election's even taken place, if tactical voting groups start to make real headway, all of these things could really cause the Tories to end up in Canada 1993 territory, where they lost virtually all their seats. And if the Tories don't realise just how much trouble they're in, it means they're not getting full and frank analysis, but they're being fobbed off by people who just want to build up their morale as a higher priority than informing them. Because if they were fully informed, they would realise there's a reason Labour have spent the last 2 PMQs choosing to talk about asylum in PMQs. I wonder how many Conservative MPs have questioned that. Why did Starmer talk about asylum? Why did a Labour leader choose to bring up asylum in PMQs 2 weeks in a row? Have they even thought about it? It's because Labour see it as a strength for them. Now, it cannot be a strength both for Labour and the Conservatives. So which is it? It's ridiculous to suggest that Labour, with a poll lead stretching back over 2 years and now covering every individual policy area, are getting things wrong. The Tories need an issue where they have an advantage over Labour and they need to push that issue. It has to be one that the public are interested in, of course. And then you go, oh, there isn't one anymore. There used to be, and they should have focused on it. If they'd have focused on the ones they were leading in a year or two ago, then they could have made headway, but they didn't. So then you pick your next best option, the ones where Labour's advantage is smallest. Winning and losing elections isn't about the headline voting intention results. It's about the individual policy areas, the nuts and bolts. Like I said, 1992, 2015, Labour had a lead over the Conservatives. Tories still won. Why? Because Labour never led on the personal head-to-head or the economy. They led on voting intention before the campaign kicked in, but they didn't lead on the individual issues which matter. And that's what anyone in politics needs to understand. The attitudes of swing voters changes in an election campaign. Before it, they're just expressing dissatisfaction with the government. They'll say they're not going to vote for them. Then they end up being don't knows mostly. This makes it look like the opposition have a lead, but it's a mirage. If the opposition are not convincing voters on key issues, then the don't knows will come back and crush that lead, and the Tories win another election. But right now, Labour are leading on everything. They're leading on the head-to-head, the economy, housing, the NHS, education, even immigration and asylum. At the start of the week, I talked about reports that Sunak's advisers are telling him to get the Rwanda bill done this week and then forget about it, focus on the economy. This advice is a year too late, but it is still the best advice you can get. Oh, and also not laugh at voters. Try not to do that. The Tories are not strong on the economy, though. But it is easier to fiddle the statistics than other policy areas. Actually, with the news today, we could be in technical recession. So that's going to probably sink anything anyway. But it's still his best chance. Because you can fiddle economic statistics much easier than anything else. I've seen suggestions that they should focus on the head-to-head between Sunak and Starmer as well. But there's a couple of things I'd say to that. First, they are actually attempting to do so. So it's not really a suggestion. Second, they've been attempting to play the man rather than the ball ever since Labour established that lead, and it hasn't worked so far. Sunak's most recent attempt to show that Starmer was not only a top lawyer, but has written a book read by other serious lawyers, and he tried to use that as a sort of insult, that belied a breathtaking level of desperation. They will keep trying to attack Starmer, and maybe they'll find something that resonates, but so far they haven't. I don't personally think the head-to-head strategy is a great one. Yes, I get that Labour's lead over the Conservatives in terms of the head-to-head is small. It's much narrower than for other key issues. And I've just pointed out myself that head-to-head with leaders is a key issue for voters. But it still seems doomed. Starmer points out that Sunak is weak and mired in sleaze. Well, this cuts through to the public because he is. Sunak points out that Starmer was a top lawyer. Right. That's it. That's so far what they've got. Not sure I'm seeing the chance for the Tories to leapfrog Labour on this one, if I'm honest. But just in general, the Tories are not just far behind in the voting intention polls. They are behind in the individual components as well, the core issues for voters. The Tories' best chance is to start to turn some of them around. You know, to focus on the economy. If they do that, they'll still lose, but they will lose fewer seats. But if they focus on the wrong strategy, because they're not being told the full truth about the position they find themselves in, they could end up making it even worse for themselves. So I think this is a very good question. Do the Tories, at least privately, realise just how much trouble they're in? But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.